Hello, welcome or welcome back. This is my second try trying to do this. I'm in a parking garage before I get my daughter from preschool to get one particular ingredient for a future meal. This has been a week. I don't know, kind of on the confusing side. And not necessarily for the reason that you might think if you've seen my previous videos. While I'm somewhat in a holding pattern because he does believe that we'll get through on the other side. And I'm just kind of letting it seem that way. It helps me still have the finances to get things that I need from my room. And this might be a karmic kind of connection that's just maybe why it's so confusing to know how to get away from it and when. But yesterday a video came up. I didn't even watch the whole thing, probably because of how triggering it was for me. But it was largely about how the pain, anxiety, whatever you call it, of what we feel, it's not anybody else's responsibility to calm or soothe, and how unfair that is to put that on a partner. And maybe if I would have watched the whole thing, I wouldn't have been so reactive to the message. Because even in this scope of what it is, I do see the positives. It's forced me to sit and witness how hurt I was when abandonment issues came up day after day after day, and the pain that I had, where I wasn't acting out with it but just being with myself. And you know, the positive I could say about this relationship is that I no longer believe I'll abandon myself after feeling so abandoned. And honestly, never until this time in the last couple years of realizing I did want my partners in some way to save me. But there's still just so much that I feel like could be eased with some understanding and love from another person. Like, never before have I felt so alone in everything. And I think part of where I fight that is because I have had plenty of relationships. Like, my intimate partners have been my real way of learning about myself, coming face to face with the dark spots, the beautiful spots, getting to know what they are because of how others can see them. And judging myself more from the ones that weren't so healthy. But also loving myself more too from the ones that accepted the bits of me that were hard to for myself. And the thing that I think of is, even if I still know that I have more that I need to do, because working on it on my own for over 20 years hasn't been enough to really get down there if I'm still with this kind of partner. Is it truly my responsibility to clean up, soothe, and heal the pain and issues that I have from a childhood with emotionally immature people, highly reactive, abusive people, being sexually abused as a child and having no safe place to be seen with it. The fear that I carried for so long. Like, is that really just mine? I don't necessarily need anybody else to fix it. But is it mine to do with what has been put on me by other people? Big picture, it's probably yes. For my own sake, it is. But in this landscape, it's difficult to see that I'm gonna have to deal with just never feeling safe in my own body with someone that I don't feel safe with in my day-to-day. The biggest example that I have of how it all affects me is I began to wonder about how my blood pressure has been with just not wanting to go to the doctor again and have a bunch of blood drawn just to be told that everything is good when things just aren't fitting together for me. But being that I am 20 to 30 pounds heavier than I was before I had my daughter, and none of the things that used to work for me have been working this time. You know, how's my blood pressure? And I used to go into different stores that had that thing where you sit down and you put your arm in it and check it. But I know even though I was categorically high risk with my daughter because I was over 35 when I was pregnant with her and had her, I had zero issues with blood pressure or anything. I was not diabetic. I had no issues anywhere. So I checked it, and unless I'm laying in bed before I'm fully in my head, I am around the 120 over 80 versus 135 over 85 when my normal, and what I am when I am still sleepy in bed, is around 110 over 70. And that's always where I've been. And that's just really the show of how much my entire body is just working so much harder to deal with this whole of what is my life right now. I just don't even know what to do with it all. I don't know, I could go on and be quiet forever just thinking about this. But I'd love to know what opinions you have, what your background is with what you've worked on. Because I've done plenty of work to see my parents for the children they were when they had us, to see the backgrounds they came from, and even doing what I could to break into the very well hidden memories of rape, because my mind hid those so far away. But I mainly needed to know if I even defended myself, because when I pictured little me in front of myself, I could never give her love, even if I could give her some kindness. So for my own self, I needed to know if I fought. And I know that I've done so much more work than even any men that I've known that maybe they knew me because they were just struggling with how their wives dealt with their rape histories within the marriages that they got stuck in and just stayed stagnant. And I never could stay stagnant, and that's probably why this just all feels so much like death. But I've never run from that stuff. And even less than 2 months before meeting the current person, I had gotten a book that was supposed to be done in concert with going to with a therapist and the work that they would do to integrate dissociated parts, because by that time I had witnessed the really reactive, screamy part in me, and the ways that over the years I had just made really rash decisions to try to just stop it, and just wanting to stop that whole effect. And I don't even think that I had any parts that I became unconscious behind. They were just like when my dad died and I split, it was like I was 3 to 4 layers behind myself. It was like skin where I could see through it, but those parts closer to the surface knew that I could not deal with everything, and so they were just a little bit stronger with just dealing with the outside world so that I could hang back. But then for the next 3 years, I was just in various states of dissociation and suicidal ideation and planning and panic. And I just knew that I couldn't keep doing that, even for the gifts that I saw that it brought me through the years. So it's not that I've hidden from anything, but never really took the time to see that I used my different relationships to help me learn to feel. And getting into sexual situations with many too soon before I was ready, not knowing how to speak up for myself, or speaking up for myself and having backlash, and not knowing how to step in at that point to continue backing up for myself. But overall, I can feel plenty in my heart. I can think plenty in my head. But it's a body that I know that I used sex just to try to know how to feel. A lot of me now, currently, still, I can take it or leave it because I honestly just never could really feel very much. And I think that's probably why I was also drawn to massage, was one, the permission to touch another person after a family that just wasn't healthily tactile, but also to test myself to see how I was with different stages of being touched by people. Can I feel it? And sometimes it's too intense. Sometimes it's just like a feather. Other times I notice where I can feel it more than others. Never in the sexual way, of course, but the general body of, I think, just shut down from physical abuse and, an area from sexual abuse. how easy this could be. But would I really have even gotten this far with the abandonment issues if I was with someone that was meeting me in the places that I hurt versus leaving me alone to feel the way I feel? Like, is it unfair to be calling this man a narcissist simply because maybe he doesn't have the level of empathy that I would have wanted? Like, maybe he has been showing me some, but because it didn't meet the level that I needed, maybe I didn't see it. Am I that deluded? I don't know. And I don't even know if I could be. But because of that video, I saw my own issues that I know I have and how I've been spoken to in this. It makes it so confusing to know what's real. Holy hell. Alright. I think I'm gonna go in the store and get that ingredient. I still honestly have 45 minutes before I should get my daughter. But I'm just in a head swirl. Give me your input on your take on all this, your history with various trauma, whether you've worked through it, whether you haven't, where you know you're still stuck, and what you feel like you need. Alright. Like this if you understand. Subscribe to know more. Thanks, guys.